My younger sister is having an affair with my husband and is enjoying it. I did a long game. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Eloise's home was a testament to her impeccable taste and successful career. The spacious living room, adorned with tasteful art and elegant furniture, buzzed with the laughter and chatter of the family gathering. Eloise, with her graceful demeanor and warm smile, played the perfect hostess, ensuring everyone's glass was filled and spirits high. As she moved through the room, her gaze often found Hank, her husband. He was the kind of man who naturally commanded attention, his charm and confidence as much a part of him as his sharp suits. Tonight, he was in his element, sharing stories and jokes, his laughter rich and infectious. Martha, Eloise's younger sister, was there too, blending seamlessly into the crowd. With her easy laugh and carefree air, she was the picture of youthful exuberance. She always had a way of lightening the mood, her energy unbridled and contagious. Eloise admired them both, Hank for his strength and Martha for her spirit. But as the evening wore on, she began to notice something unsettling. Small moments caught her eye, a lingering touch from Hank on Martha's back, a shared secretive glance, the faintest of smiles passing between them. These fleeting interactions, innocent in isolation, began to form a pattern that disturbed the peace in Eloise's heart. Trying to shake off the unease, Eloise focused on her guests, engaging in conversations about everything from politics to the latest family news. Yet, her mind kept returning to Hank and Martha. Were those just friendly gestures? She couldn't tell. But the seed of doubt, once planted, refused to be ignored. As the evening progressed, Eloise watched them more closely. There was an ease in their interactions, a familiarity that went beyond the bonds of brother-in-law and sister. When Hank laughed at something Martha said, his hand briefly found hers under the table. It was a fleeting touch, but to Eloise, it felt like a jolt of electricity. Her heart felt heavy, a mixture of confusion and a fear she dared not name. She wondered if she was reading too much into these moments. After all, Hank had always been affectionate, and Martha was a naturally touchy person. But something deep inside her, a primal instinct, whispered that this was different. Dinner was served, and Eloise played her part flawlessly, engaging in light-hearted banter, her laughter a little too forced, her smiles a bit too tight. As the evening drew to a close, and the guests started to leave, Eloise felt a sense of relief. The house grew quiet, the only sounds the soft clinking of dishes as the staff cleaned up. In bed that night, Eloise lay awake, Hank's steady breathing a comforting yet painful reminder of the life they had built together. Her mind replayed the evening's events, each glance and touch between Hank and Martha magnified in the silence of the night. As the clock ticked towards dawn, Eloise made a decision. She couldn't let her suspicions fester in the shadows of doubt. She needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. With a resolute breath, she made a mental note to contact a private investigator in the morning. The journey to uncovering the truth was about to begin, and Eloise braced herself for what was to come. The morning after the party, Eloise's home was bathed in the soft glow of dawn, but the light did little to lift the heaviness in her heart. She sat at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched, lost in thought. The decision to hire a private investigator felt like a betrayal in itself, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss between Hank and Martha. She made the call as soon as it was a reasonable hour. The voice on the other end was professional and discreet, offering reassurances of confidentiality and expertise. Eloise explained her situation with a measured calmness that belied the turmoil inside her. She requested surveillance on Hank and Martha, seeking evidence of what she both dreaded and needed to know. In the days that followed, Eloise maintained a facade of normalcy. She went to work, attended meetings, and smiled through social events. But beneath the surface, she was constantly on edge, waiting for the investigator's report, each day stretching out like a tightrope over an abyss of uncertainty. Hank seemed oblivious to her inner turmoil. He was his usual self, charismatic, attentive, and affectionate in his ways. Eloise found herself analyzing every gesture, every word, torn between wanting to believe in his innocence and fearing the worst. Martha, too, was as she always had been, bubbly, affectionate, and seemingly unaware of the storm brewing in her sister's heart. She talked excitedly about her plans, her dreams, and Eloise listened, a part of her wondering if beneath that carefree exterior lay a deceiver. The first report from the investigator arrived discreetly. Eloise waited until she was alone in her study before opening it. Her hands trembled as she read the contents. There were photos of Hank and Martha at a cafe, laughing together, their body language a little too close for comfort. Another set showed them shopping, their heads bent together in what seemed like intimate conversation. None of the images were conclusive, but they were enough to fan the flames of Eloise's suspicions. As days turned into weeks, more reports came in. Eloise pored over them in her study, each new piece of evidence a small cut to her heart. There were phone records too, showing frequent calls between Hank and Martha, calls that happened while Eloise was at work or away on business. Despite the mounting evidence, Eloise held back from confronting either of them. She needed irrefutable proof, something that could not be explained away by platonic affection or sibling closeness. Her plan required patience and meticulousness. She couldn't afford to reveal her hand too soon. In this period of waiting and watching, Eloise found her perception of the world shifting. Trust, once given so freely, now felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Her home, once a sanctuary of love and comfort, now felt like a stage where a macabre play was unfolding, with her as an unwitting actor. Yet, through this turmoil, Eloise's resolve only strengthened. She would uncover the truth, no matter how it shattered her world. The woman who had built a life on certainty and control found herself navigating a sea of lies and deception, determined to reach the shore of truth, whatever the cost. As autumn painted the city in shades of orange and gold, Eloise found herself in a paradoxical state. Externally, she was the epitome of composure and grace, but internally, she was a maelstrom of emotions and plans. The evidence against Hank and Martha had been accumulating, yet she chose to wear a mask of ignorance, a facade that was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Eloise's days were a carefully choreographed dance of normalcy. She hosted dinners with a smile, laughed at Hank's jokes, and indulged in sisterly outings with Martha. Each interaction was an exercise in restraint, a test of her acting skills. She had become adept at hiding her true feelings, her face a serene canvas, while her mind worked overtime, plotting her next move. Hank, for his part, remained blissfully unaware of her internal turmoil. He was as loving and attentive as ever, perhaps even more so, as if to compensate for his secret betrayals. Eloise found his affection both comforting and repugnant, a duality that twisted in her gut every time he touched her. Martha was equally oblivious, caught up in her own world. She was planning to start her own business, a boutique, and often sought Eloise's advice. Eloise provided guidance and support, all the while planting the seeds of her future plans. She used her connections to introduce Martha to influential people, setting her up for a fall that would come much later. At work, Eloise was a force to be reckoned with. Her colleagues and rivals admired her for her sharp intellect and business acumen. Little did they know that the skills she honed in the boardroom were now being applied to a much more personal endeavor. She began to discreetly use her business network to undermine Hank's dealings. Small obstacles appeared in his projects, untraceable and seemingly innocuous, but enough to cause frustration and delays. Eloise's evenings were spent in her study, poring over the latest reports from the investigator. The photos and videos were becoming increasingly damning. There were shots of Hank and Martha in clandestine meetings, their body language unmistakably intimate. Phone records showed their communication was almost daily. Yet, Eloise waited, biding her time for the perfect moment to strike. Her once happy home had turned into a stage where a twisted play was being performed. She played the dutiful wife and loving sister, while in the shadows, her plans took shape. Every smile, every tender word exchanged between Hank and Martha, fueled her resolve. As the leaves began to fall, marking the end of the season, Eloise knew that her time of inaction was coming to an end. She had gathered enough evidence to not only confirm her suspicions but to also give her the upper hand in the impending storm. The thought of confrontation filled her with a mix of dread and anticipation. The life she had known, the love she had cherished, was all a facade, and soon she would tear it all down. Eloise looked out of her study window, watching the leaves drift to the ground, each one a reminder of the impermanence of things. Soon, she would shed her own leaves, revealing the bare truth beneath. The mask of normalcy was cracking, and Eloise was ready to face what lay behind it. Winter's chill had settled over the city, and with it came a cold resolve in Eloise's heart. The evidence she had painstakingly gathered was now a formidable arsenal, and she was ready to strategically deploy it. Her plan, intricate and multifaceted, was set in motion, tightening the web around Hank and Martha. Hank, oblivious to the storm brewing, continued to manage his business, unaware that Eloise was subtly orchestrating its downfall. Through her network, she had initiated a series of seemingly unrelated events, a crucial contract falling through, a sudden audit, key employees being lured away by competitors. Each move was calculated to not only hurt Hank's business but also to strain the financial resources he had been lavishing on Martha. Martha, meanwhile, was caught up in the whirlwind of setting up her boutique, a dream that was unknowingly built on the sands of Eloise's machinations. Eloise had introduced her to suppliers and investors, all of whom were under her influence. Unbeknownst to Martha, these connections were poised to collapse at Eloise's subtle nudge, leaving her dream in tatters. Eloise watched as the foundations of Hank's business began to crumble. The strain started to show in his demeanor. He was more distracted, his usual confidence replaced by a growing sense of unease. Martha, too, was feeling the pressure. The once carefree conversations between the sisters were now laden with Martha's concerns about her business's unexpected setbacks. In her study, Eloise continued to receive reports from the investigator. The latest batch included videos that left no room for doubt. Hank and Martha were deeply involved. There were moments of them in intimate embraces, of stolen kisses when they thought no one was watching. Each piece of evidence was a dagger in Eloise's heart, but it also steeled her resolve. As the festive season approached, Eloise planned a large charity event, a yearly tradition. It was the perfect setting for her next move. The event was well attended by the city's elite, including Hank and Martha. Eloise was the perfect hostess, her smile never wavering, her grace undiminished. But beneath the surface, she was orchestrating the final act of her plan. During the event, Eloise subtly steered conversations, dropping hints about business troubles and rumored affairs. She watched as the seeds of doubt were planted in the minds of their friends and associates. The rumors, coupled with Hank's visible stress over his business woes, began to weave a narrative that Eloise had carefully crafted. The event was a success, but the real triumph was in the subtle shift in perception among their social circle. The whispers and sideways glances towards Hank and Martha were the first visible cracks in their facade, a testament to Eloise's meticulous planning. As the guests departed, leaving behind a trail of speculation and gossip, Eloise retired to her study. She sat in the quiet, surrounded by the evidence of her husband's betrayal, and allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Tears fell, not for the loss of her marriage, but for the betrayal of trust and the innocence lost. But there was no turning back. The web had tightened, and the final act was in sight. Eloise wiped away her tears, her face set in determination. The stage was set for her revenge, and she was ready to bring the curtain down on Hank and Martha's deceitful play. The early days of spring brought a sense of renewal to the city, but in Eloise's life, it marked the culmination of her meticulously laid plans. The stage was set for the final act of her intricate play, and she was ready to bring the truth to light. The evidence Eloise had gathered was irrefutable. It painted a clear picture of Hank and Martha's betrayal. Armed with this, Eloise initiated divorce proceedings against Hank. The legal documents, served to him on a crisp spring morning, were a cold splash of reality on the life he had taken for granted. Hank was blindsided by the divorce papers. They contained detailed accounts of his affair with Martha, including photographs and videos that left no room for denial. Additionally, Eloise had meticulously documented Hank's financial misdeeds, some of which threatened to border on illegal. The realization that Eloise had been aware of his betrayal for months and had been silently setting the stage for his downfall was a crushing blow to his ego. Martha, too, faced the harsh light of truth. The boutique she had dreamt of was crumbling before it even opened. Suppliers backed out, investors withdrew, and the support she thought she had from Eloise vanished into thin air. She was left with nothing but broken dreams and a tarnished reputation. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Eloise's legal team, armed with an abundance of evidence, ensured she emerged with a substantial settlement. Hank's financial indiscretions, coupled with the affair, swayed the outcome heavily in her favor. He was left financially crippled and socially ostracized, his reputation in tatters. The public exposure of the affair was a scandal that rocked their social circles. Friends and acquaintances, once charmed by Hank and Martha, now looked at them with disdain and judgment. The whispers and rumors that Eloise had subtly spread at the charity event now became loud conversations of condemnation. In the wake of the scandal, Eloise stood dignified. She had faced her betrayal and emerged stronger. Her business acumen, once focused on her husband's downfall, now returned to her own ventures, which flourished. She became an emblem of strength and resilience, a woman who, against betrayal and heartbreak, reclaimed her life and dignity. As for Martha, the sister she had loved and trusted, Eloise felt a profound sense of loss. Their relationship was beyond repair, a casualty of Martha's choices and Eloise's revenge. Martha attempted to reach out, to explain, to apologize, but Eloise could not bring herself to face her. The sister she knew was gone, replaced by a stranger she no longer wished to know. In the quiet of her now solitary home, Eloise often reflected on the events that unfolded. The victory she had achieved was bittersweet. She had regained her independence and self-respect, but at the cost of her marriage and her sister. Yet, she felt no regret. The journey had been painful, but necessary. Eloise's life moved on. She traveled, focused on her work, and built new relationships. The experience had changed her, made her wiser, more cautious of the people she let into her life. She had learned the hard way that trust was a fragile thing, easily broken and hard to mend. In the end, Eloise knew that the greatest victory was not in the revenge she had exacted, but in the peace and new beginnings she found in its aftermath. The spring blooms in her garden were a testament to new beginnings, to growth and resilience. And like them, Eloise bloomed anew, her spirit unbroken, her heart healing.